In prep sports, teams from Barron mostly wear maroon, and teams from Ladysmith usually don purple. But tonight for a girls' basketball showdown, there was another color being seen throughout the gym. WEAU's Jesse Horn reports from Ladysmith.
The rivalry between Barron and Ladysmith is an exciting one for northern Wisconsin, and Friday's girls' basketball showdown was no exception.
I have to be honest with you, it's a friendly rivalry, but anytime our girls hit the court, they want to win.
However, mixed in with the maroon and purple, there was plenty of green, a sign of hope that Barron teen Jamie Claus is still alive.
It's a very close-knit community that really cares about what happens to everyone in the community. And when we found out about what happened over a month ago, it shocked the community.
That's why the entire Heart of North Conference decided to have each team playing Friday night and its fan bases wear green.
We have a strong bond with Ladysmith. It's a great community. So is Barron. And to be honest with you, all the area schools, especially in this scenario that we're going through right now, they've been amazing.
It's been an outstanding support. I did notice people in the community wearing green as well, so that's perfect.
The distance between this hardwood and the one at Barron High School is only about 38 miles. But in recent weeks, that distance has been made much smaller.
All you have to do is look on the gymnasium walls and see the name of Jim Claus, Jamie's father, who was killed in October.
He was an outgoing guy, never was mean to anybody.
Jim's nephew, junior point guard Carter Claus, is on the Ladysmith boys basketball team.
I just try to take the best from everything and make it the best I possibly can. Try to do everything for my team I can, but.
And during Friday's game, he carried Jamie's spirit with him, with an inscription on his shoes and a message from his heart.
Just faith and hope and stuff. Always gotta be positive and hope the best happens.
Reporting from Ladysmith, Jesse Horn, WEAU 13 News.
An area church has received a special gift, and now parishioners in Independence are ready to enjoy it. WEAU's Jesse Horn joins us now with more. Hi, Jesse.
Judy, good evening to you. St. Peter and Paul Church is in the middle of a multi-year renovation project, but its latest addition, coming from native Adeline Puccini, is making the church open for all once again.
There's nothing quite like Saints Peter and Paul in Independence. But after several decades, church officials knew their house of worship needed some renovations.
One of our initial members says, Bill, you're getting into a 10-year project, because one of our goals is to do what we can afford, not to have the church go into debt.
One part of that project, making the church more handicap accessible. Enter Adeline Puccini.
I don't do steps. I live in a retirement place, and when I came here and had to go down 13 steps, and I was following a man on crutches, I said, that will never do.
Today, the 88-year-old Independence native, now living outside of Washington, D.C., was back at her old church, visiting relatives, preserving memories, and seeing her $500,000 gift come to life in the form of the new North Elevator Addition.
Adeline wanted to make sure everything was done right for this addition, including having the same brickwork and stained glass that was used when the original church was built back in 1895.
Turned out beautifully. I think the picture of Pope John Paul is so lifelike.
Father Woodrow Pace said this addition is a step forward for his parish.
The church now is serving a broader community, and we're just pleased that it all went so well.
But Adeline can now see how her step is part of a longer journey for Saints Peter and Paul Church.
And I did see pictures of it on Facebook. Somebody emailed them to me, but it's not like the real thing. This is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it was fun seeing her down in Independence today. And Judy, there's going to be a blessing for the addition after Mass this Sunday. Officials say they're still looking for help with other renovation projects around the church, including repaving the parking lot between the church and parochial school.
Last year, 2 rideshare companies, Uber and Lyft, began service in the Chippewa Valley.
With many people, including returning college students, utilizing them once again, the importance of safety is being reinforced.
WEAU's Jesse Horn offers some tips with an unusual spin. Hi, Jesse.
Hey, Bob and Danielle, good evening to you both. Yeah, for tonight, let's focus on Lyft. Its website boasts of handling 23 million passengers amongst its 1.4 million drivers in North America. But one area driver has something no other Lyft driver in Wisconsin is able to call his or her own. You've gone out, had a little too much to drink, and then hail a Lyft.
Well, it turns out my passenger goes, she doesn't have any pants on.
That's when a driver such as Dave Alderson of Menominee picks you up.
For that to hit me at about 2:30 in the morning, it's like, okay, well, I guess I've seen everything now.
He's trying to stand out from other drivers, from offering candy to riders, to even decking his car out on St. Patrick's Day. But his Lyft can be boiled down to 4 letters.
My license plate says Lyft, L-Y-F-T. And most people are kind of like just caught off guard by seeing my profile, my van, and Lyft, and they're looking for the license plate and they can't see it, and when I pull up, they're like, oh, I get it.
It's a memorable license plate, and one which serves as an important safety factor.
Simple tips would be to go as a group. You know, don't ride alone, ride in the back seat. And just kind of general descriptors about the vehicle and know who's giving you the ride.
Officer Coit says one tip to keep in mind when you call for that ride share is to look at the rating on the driver.
A driver with a better rating is probably more reliable than somebody who may be new, so you can be selective of who you choose.
Alderson credits having close to 1,200 rides with Lyft and usually works most Friday and Saturday nights near Water Street and downtown Eau Claire.
I could safely say students are about between 30 and 35% of our business. And I thank you. Thank you, students.
And says all he's trying to do is give a lift to those who need it.
The people are awesome. I've only had one bad ride in 1,200. I think I'm doing pretty good.
Now, guys, Alderson says he was surprised that he was able to get the plate, and he calls it an authentic gimmick to have. He estimates about 1 out of every 3 pickups he gets do a bit of a double take when he pulls up.
Today, crews dismantled a tree in Whitehall, considered both an obstruction to drivers and a symbol of history. WEAU's Jesse Horn was on hand for the famed spruce's final farewell.
Well, it's always been here. As long as I've lived, I'm going to be 73, and it's been here every year. It's a special tree.
This tree in the center of Whitehall has stood for several decades, the site of many memories.
All of us
under the tree.
No, what?
My first kiss was under the tree.
Oh, okay, well, whatever, I didn't know that.
But it was a sad memory which hung over this tree before the sun rose this morning. 103 years has been a long time for this Norwegian spruce. In fact, 15 U.S. presidents have come around during the time that this tree has stood here in Whitehall since being brought over in 1928. But on Friday, that timeline came to an end. The first sign that today would be the spruce's final sunrise, parking spots on Main Street were blocked off at 5 a.m. The reason for taking the massive tree down, Wisconsin statutes call for an unobstructed view of rail crossings 330 feet from the center of an intersection.
You know, we're governed by a certain set of standards, and it was identified as a hazard by those national standards and by state statute. Now we have to deal with it.
Not everyone in Whitehall was ready to deal with this. They included Cheryl Branger, who along with her brother crossed Main Street and gave a final farewell.
It's Whitehall. You know, we all love the tree, and we all are suffering.
Then at 7 o'clock, crews arrived to start dismantling the hallowed tree. Once the main branches came down, people approached to take home a pine cone and hope to bring a new spruce to life, including Cheryl, who stood next to what remained of a dear friend.
It's very, very hard to see something like this happen. Somebody said, oh, history's being made today. And I said, no. I said, history is being destroyed.
In Whitehall, Jesse Horn, WEAU 13 News.
Most of us look at a cup as merely something we drink out of, but WEAU's Jesse Horn caught up with one Buffalo County man with a familiar name to us who has developed a unique talent with them, as well as a therapeutic way to communicate an important message.
I really like, like the sound of it.
That sound.
I really like the click-clack of the cups.
And his hands. have taken him far.
Iowa, Florida, Colorado, Missouri.
All this from someone named,
believe it or not, Jesse Horn.
Not that other Jesse Horn. The sports stacking Jesse Horn has been clicking and clacking this passion since he was 9.
When people see me do this for the first time, they'll make like many facial expressions. They'll do facial expressions like this or like this.
And has become one of the nation's best in his age class.
But when I was 3 years old, a light switch turned off for me and my family.
That's when it was discovered he was autistic.
My family started to notice that the milestones that were normally met in a child's life were not happening for me. And I was literally leaving them and living in my own little world.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 1 in 59 children in America has been identified with autism spectrum disorder. And that rate has doubled over the last 2 decades.
They understand everything that you're doing and saying oftentimes. They just aren't sure how to express themselves back to you.
Long and the staff at HSHS Sacred Heart Hospital work with autism patients to make them feel at ease in releasing that expression.
Occupational therapy looks more at their emotional regulation, their sensory processing, just making them feel calm. And if a child is feeling calm, then they're more likely to be able to use their words and communicate effectively.
The sports stacking Jesse Horn hopes his skill can make him an ambassador for kids with autism.
I don't usually call those people with disabilities. I call those people with abilities because they have the ability to succeed.
And his success has stacked up rather well. With Jesse Horn in Eau Claire, Jesse Horn, WEAU 13 News.
A charge of burglary is brought against a Minnesota man accused of taking valuable collector gaming cards.
23-year-old Tyler Gehrman is charged with 1 count of burglary tied to a 2015 break-in of a comic store on Fairfax Street in Eau Claire. A criminal complaint filed today accuses Gehrman of taking specific high-dollar Magic the Gathering cards valued between $10,000 and $15,000. The complaint links Gehrman to a 2016 break-in at Truckers Union on Water Street in Eau Claire. Initial appearance is scheduled for January 9th.
While that value amount tied to these trading cards may sound high, it's not unheard of. WEAU's Jesse Horn takes a look at what makes this activity appealing. Jesse.
Yeah, Danielle, that's right. Some of these games date back to the early 1990s, and they've grown in numbers. But to call these just games is, in a way, selling them short of their true worth.
Do you want to go or me?
Zach Chafee locks in for another battle at Eau Claire Games and Arcade.
And then does 1 damage to this, I'm going to regenerate it. You've only lost 2. And then I'm going to use his +2 to draw 2.
This is the language of Magic, one of the first ever collectible trading card games.
Well, for me, there's a lot of strategy in it. And so I have to think about what I'm doing. There's a strong bond with everybody that plays these type of games that you can't really find much where else.
And even if it's a Psychic Ace, a Dark Angel, or even a Griggle, the cards in these games can have more value than even when they're just played during a friendly match.
I think a lot of people are surprised by the actual value of some of these cards because they're like, well, it's just a piece of cardboard. Like, how expensive can it be?
The monetary value of most cards can range from a few to several $100s. And even more. Prices can even be monitored online, almost in real time, to see if it's up or down. If that sounds familiar.
It's almost like an investment. I call it a stock market, but it's an investment. It allows the player to play games and switch decks and actually hold value of what they have.
Lowkrantz was the owner of an Eau Claire store which sold specific high-dollar Magic the Gathering cards, until a 2015 burglary changed that.
I was knocked down but not knocked out. It did take out my business. I did lose it at the end of the year. Wasn't able to really come back from it. But a few years later, I have not forgotten the game nor the community, which is an excellent community.
So I'm at 9 life.
For those that play any of these games,
it can get pretty crazy.
The overall joy can be worth more than the value of the card.
Not as competitive as I used to be, but I don't like losing either.
And on this night, Chafee came out on top.
Now, guys, both the gentlemen you heard in that story said that the most expensive card that they know of in Magic ever printed is called
the Black Lotus. With only 1,100 ever printed, that card, if you can find it, can retail for as high as $100,000.
But one of the hardest hit communities was Gilmanton, where this morning crews made a harrowing rescue that likely saved several lives. WEAU's Jesse Horn shows us how they did that. Jesse?
Yeah, Bob, this all happened within about a couple hours, and honestly, it's certainly what people were not expecting when they woke up this morning. After powerful storms cleared out of the area overnight, normally placid waterways turned into very dangerous waterways very fast. Elk Creek was a raging torrent rushing through Gilmanton Thursday morning, catching almost everyone off guard, including Angelique Brighting, who initially came down to help her boyfriend and his brother. Early on, conditions seemed manageable.
So we were coming down just to help with the lawnmowers, and by the time we got down here, Grandma's car was all flooded in.
And then
Eli and Matt are stuck against the shed. They can't go no further.
Are they? It's scary. I know that they're, they're big boys and they can handle themselves, but that's my family, so I am worried about them.
With the waters rising here at Elk Creek at least 6 feet in about 30 minutes, that meant time was very critical for their survival. As Angelique waited and held her boyfriend's little daughter, Eli and Matt were able to get back on solid ground.
Words can't describe it. I was telling everybody over there when I got them back, I was never going to let them go.
After crews rescued 2 other people, Eli and Matt's grandmother and her neighbor, there was a little second guessing.
My grandma was 86 and she lost everything. She lost both her cars. She had a big enclosed trailer with all her antiques in and all that stuff. It's all gone, and kind of feel responsible for not getting it out of there, but never knew it was going to get this bad.
But as the waters began to recede, there was also a chance to move forward.
I don't know if insurance pays for this or not. I don't know. It'd be a pretty tough hole to dig yourself back out of, I guess. But I guess at least you got a chance to work another day.
Now, Bob, tonight Buffalo County Emergency Management tells us the American Red Cross helping a total of 6 families displaced from the flooding of Mondovian and Gilmanton. City Highway 88 and Cream, as we're seeing south of Gilmanton, still closed tonight, and health officials asking people not to drink any water from private wells before that water can actually be fully tested. Just amazing down there.
Amazing video, and just thankful that nobody was hurt. So
nobody was injured, and this came out probably as well as it could have been expected.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jesse.
It's been 4 days since the town of Gilmanton was devastated from the flooded Elk Creek. Now those hit the hardest look to rebuild.
WEAU's Jesse Horn was in Gilmanton today to see the damage. He joins us now live from the newsroom. Hi, Jesse.
Good evening, Judy and Nikki. Yeah, when we first saw Elk Creek reaching dangerous levels Thursday, some in its path were just trying to stay alive. Today, those same people in Gilmanton were looking for answers in the wake of destruction. 4 days after the heart of Gilmanton was flooded, there was one question on Matt Bloom's mind.
Where do you start? I mean, that's the thing. You walk in there and it's like, what do you do?
Matt was asking that Monday as he helped go through his grandmother Patricia's home.
Yeah, I gotta have a copy of my driver's license.
The questions were different Thursday as Matt and his brother Eli were cut off by raging waters. Now, to give you some perspective on how high the water at Elk Creek rose, this sign is on the side of a shed that Matt and Eli were hanging on to. I'm 6'3", and when we arrived at 9 a.m. Thursday morning, the water was about halfway up this sign. By the time that they were rescued, this sign was completely submerged. Across Elk Creek from Matt, James Schneider is still amazed at the flood's powers.
It's just crazy. I just couldn't understand where it came from and how that creek would have just flown over that far.
His next door neighbor, Sonny Bauer, hardly recognizes his backyard.
Looks like a war site. It's just, well, like a tornado went through here.
Today, Matt Bloom stood inside the shed where he and his brother waited to be rescued, questioning his survival.
Yeah, if that concrete wouldn't have been there, I think that we'd have been probably going through Elma by about now, probably.
While trying to find answers.
There's so much to do here, but there's so many people, and people that you wouldn't even think about that would, come up and offer their support, and it's unbelievable.
Now, Judy and Nikki, we did ask Emergency Management Director Stephen Shifley for comment today on the status of recovery in Buffalo County, but he refused to comment. In the newsroom, Jesse Horn, WEAU 13 News.
In the last 6 months, 3 Wisconsin officers were killed in the line of duty. Rusk County Deputy Dan Glaze, Officer Jason Weiland in Marathon County, and Anthony Borostowski with the State Patrol.
Tonight, WEAU's Jesse Horn takes a look at the process of putting together a proper funeral for those officers. Jesse?
Bob and Danielle, good evening to you. For any law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty, when that happens, that's referred to as their end of watch. Now, in each of these cases, Glaze, Weiland, Borostowski, their final farewell was orchestrated by the same officer-in-chief.
We shouldn't have to be doing these types of services for our men and women in blue.
They are the final call to arms for officers killed in the line of duty. The date of an officer's death is referred to as end of watch.
That's how detail-oriented that we get.
When that happens, it starts the clock for Jeremy Peary of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
You never leave a fallen brother or sister behind, period. So just because they're now deceased, it doesn't mean that they're no less important to us.
During a recent 6-month stretch, 3 officers were killed upholding the law. In each case, Peary was appointed officer-in-chief to orchestrate the last goodbye for the fallen.
We want to be as prepared and as professional as what we can to provide those services to that officer and their family.
This attention to detail falls on Peary and his select team of fellow officers to account for every detail, from where people are placed, to the timing of the 21-gun salute, to even where the service is held. When Rusk County Sheriff's Deputy Dan Glaze was murdered last October, his service was held in the gym of the old Cameron School. But no matter how large or small a venue is, Peary's team must plan and execute a grand display of pageantry in only a matter of days.
It's similar to planning a wedding for several thousand people in 4 days.
Rusk County Chief Deputy Phil Grassman is now part of Peary's team. His first service was for his former colleague.
I remember thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. I can't believe this is actually happening, but it is happening, so I'm going to do the best that I possibly can.
He and Peary worked nearly nonstop to craft his ceremony.
When I stayed at his place, we would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and start working on this deal, and then go to bed at 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night to ensure that we had everything lined up.
Amidst all of the choreography planned, the #1 goal is still to show respect for the family of the fallen. Eau Claire County Sheriff's Deputy Corey Shalinsky served as family liaison for his friend Dan Glaze and said much of the wishes for the service were made after Dan's death.
Dan was my brother. I know this is what he would have wanted. And to bring in a not so familiar face to say this is how we do it in law enforcement and this is how we recommend it, that would have been very tough for them.
Despite the strategizing, some things don't happen according to plan. And now that Peary has led the planning for 3 of these services, he knows now how to remain cool.
You can't get stressed out about that stuff. You just got to understand that those things are going to come up, and as long as you're solid in your planning, you got contingencies in place, we're good to go. If it happens, okay, let's deal with it and move on.
It is only once the tributes end and the deceased is taken to their final resting place can Peary and his team reflect on the officer's final and proper salute.
Our very best that we can do is the very least that we can actually do for that officer and the family. So nothing less than our best is acceptable.
Now, the Wisconsin Honor Guard Association lists on its website 15 line-of-duty deaths in the state in the past 10 years. We have more about the process and other stories connected to these services online right now at weau.com.
The First Amendment of the United States Constitution contains 45 words which hold so much power.
But 3 of them, freedom of speech, have been recently finding a new meaning more than 200 years since they were written.
WEAU's Jesse Horn explains in his report, Is Speech Free?
Hey, you guys walking over there, you look really nice. Come and get some pizza.
The offer sounds appealing. Pizza and soda for lunch. But there's a catch.
Basically, we ask students to come sign away their First Amendment rights for 10 minutes in order to get free pizza.
And spend time with an evil dictator ruling over those in Freelandia.
I like your shirt, but you're going to have to wear it over here. Everyone's together. Now everyone's separate.
The exercise is meant to show people the importance of the First Amendment and the rights contained in it.
I hope to gain a knowledge of just seeing what people actually know about our rights we have in this country and seeing how they realize everything that we might have taken for granted.
And college campuses like UW Eau Claire have recently had to handle one of those rights, the freedom of speech, head on. Exercising one's freedom of speech or expression has been viewed as an American right since that First Amendment was adopted back in 1791. But with it now being challenged in more prominent ways, we decided to ask the question, is speech free?
I believe this proposed policy does a great job at making it clear the university strives and promotes academic freedom.
Earlier this year, the University of Wisconsin system's leaders approved a policy which calls for suspending and expelling students who disrupt campus speeches and presentations. Students who twice engage in violent or other disorderly conduct which disrupts others' free speech would be suspended for a semester. A third offense would mean expulsion.
And the Supreme Court has never maintained that the First Amendment means you can say whatever you want, however you want, wherever you want.
Dr. Eric Casper set up UW Eau Claire's Center for Constitutional Studies last year. He says while the policy provides answers, it also comes with some questions.
Is it exactly clear what is being prohibited by the policy in some instances? Is there the potential with the penalties that could be imposed as far as suspension and expulsion, that there's a chilling effect on student protesters and student speech?
Questions he hopes can be answered.
As with most public policies, I think this one does some very good things, but there's also some questions, I think, in terms of the freedom of expression that we can still look at in ways that maybe this could be improved as this is refined on individual campuses moving forward.
For UW Eau Claire, the Regent's policy comes with some discretion.
What they don't want to have happen is just because someone doesn't like what they have to say to actually prevent them from saying it. And I think that's what the Regent vote is getting to.
Schmidt says UW Eau Claire has not been immune to recent challenges of free speech. One noted incident happened in Zorn Arena more than a year ago, when Donald Trump came just days before being elected President of the United States.
We had protesters outside of Zorn Arena, but President Trump was able to deliver his speech. Nothing was prevented from him being able to give his speech. People can disagree with it, but he was given that opportunity.
But Schmidt said the policy works to keep these disagreements civil and avoid, according to defense lawyer Harry Hertel, crossing into disorderly conduct, listed in Wisconsin state statute as actions viewed as violent, abusive, indecent, profane, boisterous, or unreasonably loud.
If there were to be something on campus where someone was a speaker that people were opposed to, the moment they start talking is the moment they're going to start needing a lawyer, because if they drown out the speaker, that is to say the crowd, those folks are likely or should be arrested.
Back in Freelandia, there were no arrests made. Everyone was able to leave with their pizza and soda. And as they entered back into the United States, they left with an appreciation for the right of free speech, but also asking, is speech in the United States truly free?
No, I don't think anything is free. Everything comes with a cost, and you have to, in this country, no matter what you do, you have to go within the parameters of whatever that governing body said you can do. But again, we elected those officials that made up those guidelines. So again, it's as free as we can be without total anarchy.
In Eau Claire, Jesse Horn, WEAU 13 News.